after the two mass shootings in the U.S. that took, as you remember, 31 lives. Pressure has increased dramatically on Donald Trump and the Republican Party to do something about guns. Well, just a short time ago, the U.S. president said there is movement on a key issue, background checks, and he believes there's a good chance to get meaningful legislation. CBC's Karen Pauls is on the story. She joins me live from Washington. What else did Donald Trump have to say on this front, Karen?
You know what? Very interestingly, he said that he's been dealing with some of the concerns being raised by the National Rifle Association. It's been warning him this week that gun control won't go over very well with his base supporters, but he didn't seem worried at all about his base being upset. In fact, he said he has more control over what they think, and he can move them, that his supporters take their guidance from him. Whether or not that's true, we'll see. But Trump did say the NRA's views are being respected, and the lobby group will either be there with him on the issue of background checks or will be a little more neutral, whatever that means. He predicted, though, that there won't be a rupture with the NRA. He also says there's growing support politically for gun legislation from both sides. Take a listen to this clip.
We don't want insane people, mentally ill people, bad people, dangerous people. We don't want guns in the hands of the wrong people. I think that the Republicans are going to be great and lead the charge along with the Democrats.
Now, Trump also said he had good talks yesterday with Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer, as well as Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Trump described those discussions as bringing tremendous goodwill for meaningful action, but he doesn't see the need to call back Congress from summer recess because there will be a package of gun-related measures in the fall, and he expects support for that. Now, his own ideas have kind of evolved on this over the course of the week. This is some of the strongest language he's used so far when it comes to gun control, Suhana.
And in an issue that's closely related to the mass shootings, I know that senior White House officials and some tech giants are holding a summit in an effort to find ways to stem the tide of violent extremism online. This is happening at the White House. Anything coming out of those meetings yet, Karen?
We're not hearing anything, and we may not. I mean, it's we don't even know who's there, actually, just top executives. But they are looking at ways to track online extremism and try to prevent the kinds of attacks we saw last weekend. Of course, the gunman in El Paso is believed to have posted a manifesto on an anonymous message board called 8chan. Many white supremacist groups also use these online sites and social media to spread their racist message. So one option they'll be talking about is whether to ban and remove them. This week, 8chan lost 2 of the web services it needs to operate, but doing that just pushes these groups further into the dark web and makes them even harder to track. So that's something they'll have to keep in mind. One of the challenges, of course, is that the president's own language sometimes reflects that used by white nationalists themselves. Democrats say Trump's racist rhetoric inspired the El Paso gunmen. Now, the president won't be at that meeting, and that's generating some discussion. Take a look at this clip from a hate crime expert.
Well, I think it certainly dilutes the impact of this meeting and this congregation of big tech. You know, he's declaimed any responsibility for this sort of violence, the sort of rhetoric that we have seen.
Now, Trump is going to some big money fundraising events this afternoon, which are also proving to be controversial. And then he's starting 11 days of holidays. Suhana?
Thank you, Karen. CBC's Karen Pauls in Washington. The White House is hosting a summit today to discuss online extremism. It comes, of course, after last weekend's mass shootings in Texas and in Ohio. One of those shooters posted a manifesto online. I can tell you the president is not at today's summit. You know who's there? Tech company officials and internet providers and White House officials. We've got technology expert Takara Small right here in studio to talk about tackling online hate. So let me pick your brain. If you were a fly on the wall, what would we be hearing coming out of this summit happening at the White House?
I think, you know, the first thing is that it would be hard to guess because we don't know who's actually in attendance.
True.
Some of the major technology companies that you think would be attending this have declined to say whether or not. So I think, on the fly on the wall, I would hopefully hear some type of platform policy being put forward to tackle online hate.
And what could be in that policy? Because this is an emotional story that is going through the United States, the post-shootings trauma, if you will. So it's top of mind. What could come out of this?
I think what's really required in a situation like this is platforms taking a more active approach when it comes to finding and removing online hate content. I think policy and service policies that are online with these social media platforms need to be updated. A lot of the time they call out violence and hate, but they need to call out supremacy, and they need to be very specific about how they're combating that. And last but definitely not least, I think, we are in an age of technological innovation, and we've seen with other incidents, for instance, with other terrorist groups like Islamic State, there were policies that were put in place to track, monitor, and share that information with government officials and with police. That needs to be taken into account.
So is this a legislation thing? Because I'm thinking, websites and providers will be saying, well, we could point it out, but we don't want to police it.
It's everyone. And that's what I think is taking a lot of effort to come together and create a policy that will have some type of effect. It's everyone, all of these policymakers will have to play a role. And I think media also plays a really big role. I've seen some outlets play the full video from the owner of 8chan discussing why the site should not be taken offline. And you would never see you'd never see the full video of something like that online if it was another terrorist group. Media plays a really core role in making sure not to amplify hate voices.
You've heard the discussions, though, and there are, on both sides of the freedom of speech. So someone can post what they feel is right and correct, perhaps, but it may not be considered hate speech. Is that really what's at the heart of all of this? Do we need to say this is and this isn't? This is, this isn't. And who makes that decision?
Well, it's a complex issue for sure, but I think technology companies have been doing that for quite a while already when it comes to violence. They have policy and they have rules of engagement, but they don't always apply them equally. And so, yes, you do have the freedom to say what you want, but also these companies are private entities, and they have the right to remove that content.
And when you hit accept,
you use those platforms, you sign up, you are essentially okaying the right for them to remove that content.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you were in this summit right now and they said, we want to hear from Takara Small from Canada because we have great ideas in Canada, what would be the point you want to make to these high-tech mucky mucks?
I, definitely say start enforcing your policies on an equal playing field for everyone. And then I would also say you need to start hiring and onboarding people of color. More people of color and more women. When you have diverse voices in the room, you're able to see how the ramifications and consequences of those affect people. And tech is well known for not being incredibly diverse.
You know what? That's a point I really hadn't even thought of because it brings the different perspectives to the table, doesn't it?
It does.
Great to have you on the program.
Thanks for having
me. I want to
me.
thank you for your time. Takara Small is a technology expert and journalist. Got her right here in studio.